Welcome everyone. The topic for the day is safety and health regulation with respect to both the best practices across the globe and the local viewpoints. So, what is the definition of global health? First and foremost thing, anything related, any problem related, any issue related, any concerns related to the health that basically is common to all the human as a species and which may be influenced by circumstances, experiences in other different geographical boundaries, and can be best addressed, best controlled by cooperative actions and solution. We have just witnessed SARS-CoV-2 virus, or popularly known as coronavirus, that has been doing rampage across the globe, is basically what we understand a glorifying example of global health. Remember, health problems, issues, and concerns that transcends national boundaries, which may be influenced by circumstances, definitely by experience in other countries, and which are best addressed by cooperative actions. So, let us have an understanding of what exactly we'll be covering around it. First and foremost thing are the reasons for global health, the moral duty that we all possess. Believe me or not, we are all a part of the same species. The public diplomacy, investment in self protection, definitely yes. And what we are looking is at the global health and the limited resources that we have to fight such pandemics, such epidemics, such viruses, such unforeseen circumstances. We need to present an uncoordinated effort which will exactly relate to a wasted resources. So what do we present? We need to have a cooperative approach towards one another. So lack of stable leadership. Remember, a high turnover in the attrition rate will mean there is very big uncertainty as far as strategic directions are concerned. So this brings me to the next factors of what exactly will be there in hold for us in the future. Expand the talent pool in the developing world. When I say developing world, we are talking only about Africa. We are all talking only exclusively of Asia, probably of South America to a certain extent. Devise effective system for disease prevention and treatment. Mend health infrastructure, something which is overlooked, something which we believe is only a priority given to the uber rich populations altogether. In fact, they get the best of the medical things. But as a human being, I believe and sincerely, it is a fact that every individual who has born on this planet should have the exposed to the best of the abilities, best of the facilities, best of the doctors and medical extension to be catered to him. Everybody has the equal right to live, to prosper. So, health issues, any issue that concerns the countries are affected by transnational determinants. Now, what can be there be all about it? We are speaking around it. Climate changes. We're talking about urbanizations and malnutrition. So basically, this is something which we see for centuries to come around it. Now, climate, the temperature is changing. We are witnessing a lot of forest fire. We are witnessing a lot of flash flood, and at the same point of time in different corners of the world. So that is what vividly will tell you about what exactly is climate change. We're talking about urbanizations where there is localizations of huge number of population into one particular area. Malnutrition, definitely not everybody is getting the best of the food. In fact, not even getting his or her stomach full. So, what do we look at solutions like polio eradication, which we have successfully done from the face of the earth? Yes, there are certain clusters where polio still exists, but then this will always remain around. Containment of avian flu, influenza. We have this uh, a lot of respiratory influenza that comes around it. We had witnessed the mad cow disease in the previous decades. We have visit Ebola in the previous decade. Now we are witnessing coronavirus. And what are the approaches to mitigate such thing? Probably one way was the tobacco control, tobacco control that we went around it successfully. So there are examples in which we have displayed our vigor, we have displayed our resolutions to fight pandemic and probably win over it. So remember, the health issues which might be marring the planet at this point of time will be overcome definitely, but we require cooperative and directive efforts to eradicate it. Glorifying example, remember, is the avian influenza, the polio, the mad cow disease, the Ebola virus, and so on and so. So, globalization of health. Now, what we will be talking about? Uh, the priorities of goal. Number one, first and foremost thing, are we looking at the general health status that needs to be given to an individual? Everybody has the right to know about the status of his or her health vis-a-vis the specific disease that is plaguing, raging, uh, absolutely anarchy among the population. So we need to understand, prioritize the goals. I strongly believe first and foremost thing would be something which has to be mitigated on an urgent fashion would be the specific disease and overall implementation of general health conditions which should be administered to each and every individual present on this planet. The funding allocation often dictated by foreign bodies. Remember, this is where which we need to understand. When it has been dictated by foreign bodies, they do not understand, perhaps comprehend the local requirements. That is what we are looking into it. And then there's a chunk of people in the bureaucracy, or perhaps in the corridors of power, which leads to a lot of nepotism and corruption. So, how do we go across this? We need to change the focus. Number one, we have to have maternal survival instinct that comes to being around it. Increased overall life expectancy. Yes, we have changed a life expectancy from 28 at the beginning of 2nd century to approximately 72 at as of present across the globe. So we have increased the life expectancy altogether. Can it be further be enhanced? Talking about the historical development of the terms, we will talk about the public health. It was developed in mid 19th centuries in the developed economies, concerned with mostly with the national issues, national health issues, when there was an aging population in respective country, and then the dire requirement, the dire needs of this health medical issues were to be raised. So data and evidences to support action, focus on population. Did I say aging population at that point of time? Social justice and equity, something which is to be equilibrium equated to every section of the society, no matter how rich or no matter how vulnerable the person is. Emphasizes on prevention rather than on cure. So we need to understand this was all about nationalism that comes around here. Then came the international health, which was developed because of this mad cow disease, because of this avian flu, because of this Ebola, where we saw from one particular continent or one particular country, the virus started traveling and traveling very fast. And this is what we need to understand. So then therein the exist came into the existence the international health. Now what we are looking into it, we are looking into the tropical disease, the conditions, the war, natural disasters of middle, probably low income countries, and tending to denote one way flow of good ideas. Probably that is what we are looking at it. We speak about the global health, more recent in its origin, emphasize greater on the scope of the health problem. Definitely, yes. Believe me, this is where we look into is as in transcending the different boundaries of the country. Essentially started, remember, public health essentially started as a welfare measure in the advanced economy for their own population, and little by little it transcended into international health, then became a global priority altogether. So it becomes a coexistent and cooperation among different countries in terms of resources, in terms of expertise, to determine in the interdisciplinary approach to mitigate such kind of disaster and viruses probably. So, discipline involved in global health, what are they? We are speaking about the social science, we are speaking about the behavioral science. Now, remember, behavioral sciences, there are countries which are vegetarian in nature, there are countries who are absolutely non vegetarian in nature, there are countries who are preference for a carbohydrate consumption. So, we need to understand. Then there are countries who believe in absolutely healthy living in terms of usage of olive oil or fruits, or probably there are countries which are depending upon the towards a little bit of a wine orientation as in the consumption. So these are the behavioral sciences as far as the consumption of the food is concerned, and this again has been governed by social sciences that comes around it. So this needs to be understood. We have to understand, enact the laws accordingly, the economies of the societies, the history we need to understand of the country where it been belonging to. There are certain countries which are perennially always on the war. You name it, at any point of the centuries, some kind of skirmishes, some kind of war, peace hardly had bestowed upon them. So we are talking about countries which are made leaps and bounds advances in terms of sciences, biomedical sciences, and environmental sciences. So we are talking about engineering. There are countries which have the knowledge. There are countries which are plagued by wars, by diseases, by tropical countries that we are looking at it. So these are the disciplines that needs to be understood and studied in an interdisciplinary fashion to best mention the outcome, how to mitigate certain uncertainty. Let us talk about the communicable diseases, the disease that spread from one person to another person and from another person, and it gets goes on exponential, and the risk factor thereof. Remember, infectious disease are always communicable, but so are the elements of Western lifestyle. So let us not only blame the infectious disease as far as tropical countries are concerned, but even Western lifestyle actually lowers our immunity. We need to go for a dietary changes, lack of physical activities. People are becoming lethargic, people are getting addicted towards their mobile and towards their car as a mode of transportation. So look what we have said about the automobile industry. People now take a lot of fags and smokes over a period of time, and probably is detrimental towards their lungs. And because of the Western lifestyle, we are always stressed, come what may, because of the job insecurity, because of the target that we need to meet around it, because of the demanding family members, demanding society pressures that comes around it. And last but not least would be the urbanization. Urbanization I will refer as a concrete jungle vis-a-vis the environmental ecological jungle, which is full of flora and fauna. So these are the things that might actually determine the spread around it. So it's not only the tropical countries that we are looking into it, the Western lifestyle actually reduces our immunity, and we become more susceptible to such diseases. So the key concept in relationship of the good health, first and the foremost thing is we need to understand what is a good health. The measurement, if we can do about the health status. There are people who say we need to walk around 10,000 steps probably to remain healthy a day. So, how many of us does a 10,000 steps? Now, this might be a fact, this might be an issue that might be promoted by a pedometer company who have launched their own pedometers for themselves. So, everybody has got a different viewpoint. You need to understand what is your measurement of a health status. The importance of cultures to health. People often need to understand where do you stress. There are countries which are absolutely increasing the obesity population. People are gaining weight. Why? Because they are only um, having a good time and probably not interesting their body to a lot of work and physical stress altogether. So this eventually will backfire, and that is what we are looking as a culture to health is concerned. The global burden of diseases, yes, we are susceptible, and there would be an innumerable attacks in terms of the viruses, the bacteria that comes around it. So the various risk factor which comes with which is getting associated with health problem, and the organization and the function of the system thereof. Let us understand the determinants of health. What is it all about it? Look, what is we are talking about it? We are talking about the age, sex, constitutional factors, as in genetic makeup. Everybody, a person who is young is susceptible to certain diseases, a person who is very old is again susceptible to certain diseases. There are people who are the prime of a health at one point of time, but if they do not take care of their health deteriorates very quickly. So we're talking about the gender, social and community network that we're looking into it, the influences that the community comes across. If people believe that only making a transport via car or via petrol automotive engines, what we are going to look into is we are not stretching our limbs at all. So this might be because of the society which stress as a success factor that you stand to own a car at the end of the day. The income status, the geographical location, believe me or not, the education, the agriculture, the work environment, you name it, we have everything that comes around it, the housing, the water, the sanitation, the unemployment. So this exactly is your living and working condition, and the general socio-economic, cultural, and environmental condition that entails everything. We have already spoken about everything that was mentioned out here all together. So that is what we are telling in terms of determinants. Now, determinants of health, there are other factors also which might be not directly linked but definitely makes an impact in terms of political stability. A country which is unstable, a country which is at war, a country which is at conflict, at a country which is at crossroad, people does not give priority towards their health. They give much more priority towards existing on themselves as on when on basis. The civil rights might be usurped altogether. Environmental degradation happens. People live for the moment and probably do not look for a far reaching impacting that can have few generations later on. So population growth and pressure is also one of the reasons. Where there is a vibrant population, where there is a young population, the consumption patterns are completely different. Then we are speaking about the urbanization or the growth of cities or the metropolitan cities across the globe, and it is not related to any one particular country. If you see economic activities being done, and these economic activities get collated, get congested to one particular or get limited to one particular geographical location, which leads to this urbanization. And yes, the development in the country of residence, as in what which country of residence you are going. Nowadays we keep on saying we are the resident of first world country, probably second world country, probably third world country, or advanced economy, developing economy, still to develop, yet to developed economies, and so on and so forth. They all have an impact about the capacity to build upon the health infrastructure and to sensitize the people about the requirement of health for health. Multi-sectoral dimensions of multi-sectoral dimensions and determinants of health. What we are looking into it is the malnutrition, the cooking of wood and coal. Now what happens with malnutrition? People have lessen their immunity altogether. Probably if they become a victim to any of the diseases, they are very less likely to recover, and chances of their recovery becomes a little bit, or should I say quite weak. So what does it happens to do with cooking with wood or oil? Now, once you start with cooking with wood or oil, it emits a lot of fumes. What it happens, it leads to your lung diseases. The capacity of the lungs to function optimally reduces dramatically. There is poor sanitation. People who are living in a poor areas will have always a poor sanitation. And remember, sanitation is one of those places which is very friendly to your bacteria and viruses. They actually thrive out there. More intestinal infection that we are talking about it. We are looking at upset stomach, and infection that leads, and anything, remember, anything, the body start gets weakening if there is some problem on your stomach as such. One of the key factors of your health if your stomach is working properly, and this can be determined on a daily basis by even a normal human being. And obviously, yes, is poor life circumstances that comes around it. That is what we are looking into it. We are talking about prostitutions. Yes, one of the major reasons which comes around with prostitutions are your STIs or sexually transmitted um, issues that comes around it, HIVs and AIDS that is there. We are talking about the advertising on tobacco, alcohol. People are making this as a lifestyle issue, as in consumption of tobacco and alcohol gives a complex of superiority. The addiction and the related disease there about it, the rapid growth in vehicular traffic, which is leading to not only noise pollution but air pollutions, with untrained drivers and on an unsafe road, directly causing road accidents. So that are the multi-sectoral dimension and the determinants of that comes around it. Let us understand the health status as in one. First and foremost thing, what causes death? Number one, it might be because of incomplete coverages as far as your health issues are concerned. As a result, what happens is proper medications, proper interventions do not take place at all because of the lack of money. Life expectancy at the birth now, the average number of years a newborn could expect to live if the current trends of mortality were to continue for the rest of the newborn's life. Now, this is what we tell it about in terms of a newborn being just taken birth. What is his or her chances of existing, coexisting, and flourishing on this planet? What are the chances thereby? Then there is the mother who actually gives the birth, and then there are unfortunately still many countries where maternal mortality is very high. The number of women who die as a result of pregnancy or probably childbirth related complications per 100,000 live birth in a given year. This needs to be reduced. This is not acceptable if we have a figure beyond 2 or 3. Next is an infant mortality rate. Similarly, the children who take birth and probably do not see a complete 365 days in their life. So basically, if they result in their death under 1 year per thousand live birth over a given year. Again, a factor of malnutrition. Again, a factor of sanitation. Again, a factor of poor health condition that the child is being subjected to. Neonatal mortality rate is the number of death among in fact within a month, and should I say within 4 weeks altogether of a given month. This is a very alarming issues. This tells something is very wrong with the society. With this is the very wrong with the psychology that the community possesses around it. So we need to work upon it. The child mortality rate, a newborn, the probability of newborn who dies within an age of beyond he or she doesn't see his or her fifth birthday per thousand live birth. Now, this is the most sensitive that I come across with it. Then we need to stress upon this, and probably anybody who has lived beyond 10 years, a sense of immunity does grows up into that individual. Beyond 18 years or beyond 20 years, a sense of knowledge and adversity that is being present comes creeps up into the mind of the person together. Let us understand the culture and health. The culture and the health, the predominant attitudes and the behavior that characterizes a group or organizations. Now, there are many cultures which has a carefree attitude altogether. There are many cultures who are very sensitive, take due precautions, get themselves immunizations, and they get themselves the vaccine as on when on basis. So, traditional health benefits, what are they, or beliefs? First is thing is I'll give you a glorifying example of epilepsy. It is a neural disorder, depolarization versus a position of a bad omen sent by ancestor. Now, this is something which we need to understand and probably remove it. Many a times in a cultures, in a traditional things, people believe that anybody who's suffering from epilepsy is because of some wrongdoing or some spirit that is working on him or her. Absolutely false. It is a neural depolarization, or there are certain things that is not working in the right fashion. Influence of culture of health. diversity, marginalization, and vulnerability due to the race, gender, and ethnicity. This you have to go across it. You have to mention absolutely around it. So we need to understand what is the culture of health in terms of the community well-being, in terms of the community thought, in terms of the societal outlook all the global burden of disease. How do we go around it? We need to understand the global burden. So which tells me the disease from communicable to non-communicable between the 2004 to 2030 predicted changes. Now this is what we keep on saying around it. From communicable, slowly and steadily we thought that we will be moving into the non-communicable diseases as the passage goes around it. That means reduction in malaria, diarrheal diseases, tuberculosis, HIV, and AIDS. What does it also means? It means there's an increase in heart attack or cardiovascular death or COPD, road accident or diabetes mellitus. These becomes a predominant factor that comes around it. It might be a multi-organ failure that comes around across it. The aging population, the middle and income countries is also a factor because then they are most susceptible to damages as far as health are concerned. Socioeconomic growth with increased car ownership, people are becoming more lethargic. They are not doing stretching their bodies to a certain limit and based on a business as usual assumption that comes around across. So I am trying to give you a little bit of an advice as far as what exactly has been done by high fertility and high mortality rates. When there is a percentage, if you look into it, when there is a high fertility, there will be a lot of children out here, and it will be absolutely in a pyramidal nature. But what happens if there is a declining mortality? That means what is happening and high fertility. We are absolutely this becomes bulge. The the pyramid becomes bulging altogether. I'm just giving you an idea as to what is going to. Now let us understand what is happening if people are not having much of a children out here. Now this becomes almost as a parallel because there is a reduced mortality. Remember, if we can increase the mortality or if there are high mortality, things get screwed away. It can be absolutely screwed. And if we have less of a child and more very reduced mortality, this will be the pyramid, the invert pyramid that comes across is less child out here and more aging population on the top. So need to understand the key risk factor of various health condition. First and foremost is the tobacco use related to the top 10 causes of mortality. Poor sanitation, which needs to be accessing the clean water. People are having extramarital affairs, and this is resulting all kind of sexually transmitted infection that we are talking about, STIs. Malnutrition is another one thing that goes around it. Now remember, people who are not well fed are susceptible to infectious disease. Overnutrition responsible to your heart problems or a cancer or obesity. So we need to maintain a very balanced look into it. The sixth would be a health system comprising all organization, institution, resources devoted to the producing action, which primarily intend to improve the World Health Organization as per the World Health is concerned. So most health system are public and private oriented, traditional and informal sector, which means to understand. Now let us come to understand as to the what exactly will be the world population arranged by income distributions. If you look into it, the richest of the 20% gets the best of the health as far as the incomes are concerned, and the poorest of 20% does not get the due recognition. So we need to have this anomaly removed, and everybody should be getting the full health benefit, whether they are the poorest part of the society or the richest part of the society. As a human being, you have the rights to your. Now these are the photographs that limits what is a well-off scenario, where people have plenty amount of food which has been left for a person, and then there are people who are actually going up for a food and their utensils are still empty. People are very hungry, and see affluent and abject poverty. What does it lead to? Where somebody is sleeping and so forth. So let us come to the last slide. So what do we do about the sustainable infrastructure? We have a role for the developed world. They need to understand the independence. of medical fraternity, a medical infrastructure, medical facility for everybody. A policy and legislation needs to be done. A reasonable exit strategies has to be done for the developed world around it. Let us talk about the developing world. In terms of developing world, we can go for sufficient amount of training and sensitization and making a health a priority among the commonest of the person, among the society in general. Give incentive if required, we give incentive to stay healthy, to reduce their weight. Probably we can say, if you are of an optimum weight, we'll give you certain amount of discount on your flight tickets, on your airline tickets, and so on and so forth. So we are giving incentive. Shift focus to health and development. Now how do we implement such strategies? First and foremost is training and education. Healthcare infrastructure has to be increased by multifold times. Economic responsibilities, each of us should take it up. There should be a distribution of wealth also, and the funding scheme that comes around. With this, I come to an end of this presentation. Thank you for watching this video.